Hello Divination and welcome. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to create a responsive block design for your Woo product pages with Divi. This is the final result we're aiming to achieve. So without wasting a lot of time, let's dive in and let's get started. All right. So the first thing we need to do to start our tutorial here, we need to install WooCommerce. It's free and you can find it in the plugins. And once you install it, you're going to have an entry here called WooCommerce and also products. So what we're going to do here is to add on new product. So I'm going to come over here and click on add new, and I'm just going to call my product kettle. And then here we need to add our description text. And when you scroll further down, we can also add our price, and I'm going to set this to 37. And over here, you can also add a short description if you need to. So delete that. Okay, so that's our short description. Now over here to the right, you may also want to create a new category. So I've created a category by just clicking here, naming it. So you can see here mine says kettle. So I'm going to select my category, and then I'm going to set my product image by clicking over here. Now I have my image in my media library. So in your case, you want to make sure you have the image that you want to use for your page. So I'm going to select my image. Now further on, I also need to add some attributes to this page. So I'm going to come over here to attributes, and I can start adding my attributes by clicking over here. It says add. So the first one here is going to be capacity, and the capacity here is going to be 250 mils. And then you want to save and add another one. And this one here is going to be material. And for the material, I'm just going to say pure copper. I'm going to save that. Add another one, and this is the final one, and this one here is just going to be condition. So this is just going to be the condition of this kettle. There we go. And then the condition here, I'm just going to say normal wear and tear. Okay, so now that I have all my attributes all set, I'm going to click on save attributes. I'm going to publish this, and then I'm going to click on use Divi builder. Okay. So now that we've selected use Divi builder for this page, the next step now is to come over here to the layout. And as you can see here on our layout, it says right sidebar. Ideally, we want to have a full width design. So we need to make sure that we activate full width. So this is what's going to allow us to have the capacity to design the whole page. So I'm going to click on this drop down and choose full width. So now that I've full width selected, I'm just going to click update one more time. And then we are going to move over to our front end editor. So I'm going to go ahead now and choose build on front end. So I'm going to select that. So this is the design that we get by default. So ideally, if you want to redesign this from scratch. So to do that, we want to delete what we have here. So I'm going to delete the whole section. I'm going to close this for now and then go into my section settings. So just making sure that I snap this over to the left so I can have enough real estate to design my section. So the first thing we're going to do is to add a gradient background. So I'm going to come over here to background, click on the second tab, click on this plus button and add my first color. Now, if you want to follow along and use the same colors as I'm using throughout this tutorial, I will leave a link to the post in the show notes below. Okay, now it's time to add my second color. So I'm going to click here and override the default color that we have here. Next, making sure my gradient type is set to linear, I'm going to set my gradient direction to 90 degrees. And then for my start and end position, I'm going to set this to 50. So now this is going to give us a solid line. So the next step now is to go to the sizing. So I'm going to click here on the design tab, sizing. And here on the width, it's set to auto. I'm going to set this to 100%. And then on the maximum width, I'm also going to set this to 100%. Now I'm going to go to spacing, because here we need to make sure we remove any spaces on the top and the bottom. So I'm going to set this to 0 pixels, activate this change so my value can be added both to the top and the bottom. The next step now is to go to the advanced tab, click on visibility, and then over here for the horizontal and vertical overflow, we need to set this to hidden. So make sure this is all set to hidden. Now, once you've done that, you click on save. Now it's time to add our rows. So I'm going to click here on this plus button. So the columns that we're going to need is pretty much a single column. So I'm going to go ahead and choose that. And before we start adding all our modules, I'm just going to close this and then we're going to go into the row settings. So in the row settings here, we need to start by going over here to the width. So I'm going to click here on design, sizing. And for the width here, as you can see on the desktop, it's set to 50%. I mean to 80%. We are going to set this to 50%. And for our maximum width, we are going to set this to 100%. Now for the row alignment, we're going to align this to the left. And then over here on the advanced tab, we're going to go to visibility. And for the horizontal, I'm going to set this to visible. And I'm also going to do that to the vertical as well. So now let's save this and let's start adding all our modules. So I'm going to start by clicking on this plus button, and the first module we're going to add is the Woo breadcrumb. So I'm going to search for it. So if you first type in the first few letters, the product will show here. So now you can see our breadcrumb is showing, and make sure this is set to this product. Next, we need to customize this text now by coming over here to design, text, and I'm going to change my font here to Phoenix. So I'm going to search for the font, and here it is. Next, I'm going to add my color. And by the way, if you want to use the exact same colors as I'm using throughout this tutorial, I will leave a link to the post in the show notes below. Okay, so now that I have the color, I'm going to add my text size as well. So I'm going to set it to 1 VW. And then I'm also going to go to my spacing. So over here on spacing, I'm going to start by adding my top margin because everything is way too close there. So my top margin is going to be 3 VW. And then my left margin is going to be 10 VW. There we go. So now you can see my text here is not too close to the edge. So that's all I need to do for now. I'm going to save this. And then the next step now is to add my image. So I'm going to click here on this plus button and search for Woo image, and making sure it's set to this product. So you can see here that it has shown our product. Okay, so the next step now is to set our width. So I'm going to click here on design, sizing. So in fact, everything is all set correctly here. Now it's time to go to visibility. So I'm going to click advanced visibility, and for the horizontal and vertical overflow, I'm going to set it to hidden. So I'm going to go ahead and select hidden for this, and then we are going to save. The next step is to add another row. So I'm going to click on this plus button, and this time our row is going to have 2 columns. So before we add any modules in there, let's head over here to our row settings. And here we're going to go into design, sizing. I'm going to activate use custom gutter width and then set this to 1. Now our gutter width just means that I've gotten rid of all the spaces between the columns. So the next step now is to add our width. So here it's set to 80% by default. I'm going to set it to 53. Okay, so next I'm going to set my maximum width. So here on my maximum width, I'm going to set this to 100%, and then I'm going to align this to the right. So we are not done yet. So we also need to go to our margins. So over here on spacing, for the top margin, we're going to set this to minus 47 VW. Okay. And for our left margin, I'm going to set this to minus 5 VW. And then for the top and bottom padding, I'm going to set this to 4.1 VW. Now I know right now as I'm adding all these values, you can't really see the effect, and you're going to see this once I start adding all the modules that need to go in place. So this needs to be padding top, and in fact this needs to be padding bottom. So I'm going to add it here, and then for the left and right padding, we are going to set this to 0 VW, like that. Now, what we also need to do here is to make sure that these 2 columns are going to be next to each other. So to achieve that, we need to come over here to the advanced custom CSS, and we need to paste this CSS code. So this CSS code can be found in the post, which I'll link to in the show notes below. Now, finally, we need to set our overflows. So I'm going to come over here to visibility, and both the horizontal and vertical needs to be set to visible. So I'm going to go ahead and set this to visible, and then save. So before we add any modules, let's just go back in and set our column 1. So I'm going to come over here to my column settings, click on design, and then I'm going to go to spacing. So here I'm going to add a left padding of 4 VW and a right padding of 0 VW. Next, we're going to go into column 2. So I'm going to click on this gear icon, design, spacing, and for my top padding, I'm going to set it to 7 VW, and for my right padding, I'm going to set this to 15 VW. So pretty much I'm okay with that. I'm going to save this, save one more time, and then I'm going to start adding my modules. So here I'm going to add my text module. So I'm going to search for it and select text, and I'm just going to add text which says kitchenware. Now let's style this text by coming over here to design, text. We're going to change this to Phoenix. And for our color, I'm just going to click on the eyedropper tool and paste my color like that. And then I'm also going to set my size, and I'm just going to scroll down a little bit here and set my size to 1.3 VW. And the alignment here needs to be set to left. Now it's time to adjust my width. So I'm going to come over here to sizing, and I'm going to set my width to 50%, and then making sure I have enough space around this text. I'm going to come over here to spacing and set my padding. So my top and bottom padding is going to be 1 VW, and I'm also going to do the same for my left and right padding. Now let's add a border on this text. So I'm going to start by adding my borders to the top. So this is going to be on all sides except the bottom. So make sure you start off with the top here. So my width here is going to be 2 pixels. And then I'm also going to set my color in here like that. Next, I'm just going to go to all the sides, set this to 2, add my color. And by the way, if you want to use the exact same colors as I'm using throughout this tutorial, I will leave a link to the post in the show notes below. All right, so I'm just going to add my last side here, and now everything is all set. So I just need to make sure that my text is centered as well. Go ahead and center it, and then we're going to save. Right, so over here, we're also going to add a title to column 1. So if you can't access the titles on column 1, what you can do is to click on these 3 little dots and then go to wireframe mode and then add it this way. So here we're going to add our Woo title. So I'm going to search for it. There we go. And then I'm going to switch over here to the front. Right. So moving on. So once you've added the Woo products, make sure it's set to this product. And then next you want to come over here to the background and add your background color. So I'm going to click on this plus button and add my background color. Right. So the next stage is to come over here to design. And then for the title text, make sure you've set it to Phoenix. And also you want to add your borders similar to what we did on the top here on the kitchenware. So I'm going to come all the way down here to border, and then make sure that you've got the top, side and left all set, and it's all 2 pixels, and you've got this cream color. All right, so once you've set all that, the next step now is to add more content. So now it's time to add our Woo description. So I'm going to click on this plus button and search for Woo description. And here it is. So by default, it's just going to pull all our information in there, and make sure it's set to this product. And then over here, you want to make sure this is set to Woo description. Okay, so now that we have that all set, we need to go in and customize our text. So let's head over to the design tab, click on text, and then here our text here is going to be Open Sans. So I am going to search for Open Sans like that. And then I'm going to choose my color, which is going to be this cream color. Right. So let's set our desktop size. So I'm going to scroll further down and set this to 0.8 VW. So now we're going to set our sizing. So I'm going to scroll down here to sizing, and we are going to set our width to 100%. Then what we also need to do here is to add some padding to the top and the bottom. So I'm going to scroll down to spacing, and I'm going to add 2 VW, both to the top and the bottom. And we also need to add this to the left and the right, just to give this text a bit of breathing space. Okay, so now that we've entered our text and it's looking great, we also need to add a border around this design. So let's go ahead and do that by coming over here to border, and we're going to start by adding the border to the right, 2 pixels. And let's choose our color. I know we've used it before, so here it is. Also want to add it to the bottom. So that needs to be 2. Choose our color. Now we need this on the left. And set this to 2. All right, so as you can see, this is really taking shape now. So all we have to do now is to save. Now we also need to add additional information here on the right. So let's click on this plus button and search for Woo additional info. And this is where we're going to add all our attributes. And making sure on the product here it's set to this product. Let's go ahead now and customize our text. So I'm going to click here on design, and so I'm going to go to my text settings, set this to open sans, and for the style here I'm going to set it to italic, and let's change the color as well. So I'm going to choose this color here, and we also need to add our size for our text, and I'm going to set this to 0.6. Now let's customize our attribute text. And here it is. I'm going to click here on this drop down, and we're going to start by adding our Phoenix as our title, and we're going to choose the same cream color. So I'm going to click here on the recent colors and choose my color. And then for my text size, I'm going to set this to 1.1 VW. And we also need to add some spacing here. So I'm going to set this to 1 pixel, and the sizing here is going to be 100%. And now it's time to add our borders. So I'm going to click here on border, and let's start by adding our border to the left, setting this to 2, and then let's add our color here, and we're going to do the same to the bottom, add our color, and let's do this to the top as well. And finally, we're going to add our color. Okay, so you can see how we're building this. This is really taking shape. So the next step now is to add our buttons. So what we're going to do now is to add a second row. So I've already gone ahead and added my row here, and it needs to have 2 columns. And once you add your columns, the next step now is to add. So the next step now is to add our padding to column 1. So I'm going to go into design, spacing. So here we need to make sure we set it to 5 VW and then save. Save this one more time. Now it's time to add our Woo pricing. So I'm going to click here on this plus button and search for Woo price. And there we go. So that price is for this product, and make sure over here it's set to this product. So the next step now is to set our font and our colors. So I'm going to come over here to design, price text. We're going to change this to Phoenix. We're going to change the color to this cream. And then we're going to set our size as well to 1.5 VW. Now let's head over here to sizing. And here we're going to set our width to 39%. So I'm going to add 39% in here. Then we're going to come over here to spacing, and we are going to add our top padding. And this is going to be 1 VW. And in fact, it needs to be top, bottom, left, and right. So I'm going to add 1 VW here as well, just to give this a bit of breathing space. So we may also add our border, but this time our border is going to be around all the sides. So let's head over here to border and just make sure we set this to 2 pixels and change our color. And I'm going to go to my recent colors here and choose my color. So now we have a full border on our color. So finally, we need to go and add to cart. So I'm going to save this. And then over here, we need to add our Woo add to cart. So I'm going to search for it. And here it is. So making sure this is set to this product over here on design, I'm going to start by working on the button. So I'm going to click on use custom styles for button. And I'm going to start by adding my background color. So I'm going to paste my background color here. And for my button text, I'm going to go and add my cream color. Now let's add our text size. So by default, it's set at 20 pixels. I'm going to set this to 1.3. And you see, this has reduced our button size. So to fix that, we need to come all the way down here to spacing. And we are going to add top and bottom padding of 0.5 VW. And then on the left and right, we're going to set it to 1.5 VW. Next, we're going to head over to sizing and we're going to set this to 100% on the width. And pretty much this is our final design. So I'm going to go ahead now and save this, save it one more time. And now let's exit the Visual Builder and do a quick preview. So this is our final design. So there you have it. Thank you all for watching. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and do follow us on our social media platforms. By doing so, you'll be notified every time we release new tutorials. Until next time, thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video.